So, welcome to this episode of the How to Choose Happiness and Freedom Show. I'm your host, Lauren Foster. I am a happiness teacher. I'm the founder of Be Happy First, and I'm your guide on your journey to figuring out how to be in love with your life starting right now, happy and free on purpose. So, my guest today is my sister author in the book that was released on October 20th, The Art and Truth of Transformation for Women. She's Andrea Firpo, and she is a psychic cheerleader. Thank you for being here.
You're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so appreciative.
We're going to have so much fun. We've got so many things to talk about. And all right, so the story. So tell us the story. I don't want to, I want people to buy the book and read your story, of course. But, if you wanted to give us a synopsis of your story, and then because your story for me brought up a lot of questions and a lot of exploration that I wanted to do. And then I want to talk to you about feng shui, and I want to talk to you about all the things that you're into. So tell us your story.
Okay, so in my chapter, I talk about a very large transformational period. I had several in my life, but this one in particular, there were a number of significant events that happened. You could say they were synchronistic for sure, that led me to make a huge decision in my life to change everything that I was doing. Essentially, I was diagnosed with Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune condition. And for me, it was a real wake-up call. I was, you find me in the chapter right at the beginning, going to bed, waking up and having so enormous pressure in my face. Now, for people who aren't familiar with what Graves' disease is, because it's more on the rare side of, being less flashy than like maybe Hashimoto's. Graves' disease actually is when your body decides to go into overdrive, and it recognizes the tissue in your thyroid to be identical to the tissue behind your eye, and both start to get attacked and inflamed and swollen. And in doing so, it puts pressure on your optic nerve behind your eye, and your eyes start to be pushed out of your head. Now, if you don't get it treated, you have like a bell curve, and you'll eventually lose your eyesight, or your eyes will be permanently bulging out of your head, and they actually go in surgery and make more space for your eyes so that you don't look like a frog. So I didn't know anything about this. I had symptoms probably for 10 years, rolling around in my 30s, and I just attributed them to other things like most of us do. And then I had this, enormous pressure in my face. And so the chapter opens up with me doing that. It also gives you really great insight into what was going on in my life. My life was completely out of control. It was completely out of my hands. On the outside, it looked beautiful. I lived in San Francisco. I had the husband. I had the flashy home and the parties and the daughter who was in art school, and everything was going great on the outside. But I and my thought patterns and beliefs, I can just be really frank and honest. I hated myself. So I was contributing to essentially my body killing itself. I was attacking myself. And so the chapter really talks about like this transformational journey of recognizing that and being so broken at that point, being at a place of such open willingness to try anything, that everything came rushing in. I teach my clients this: if you're holding on to what you want, the universe can't give you anything new. But if you open your hands finally, everyone rushed in to help. So I was so open to not taking my thyroid out for the rest of my life. I was in my late 30s. I didn't want to go on medication for the rest of my life. And I have a holistic background. So I was like, let's get to the root cause of this. So I searched out the best people to help me on that journey. And I fell in love with energy work because I had never been introduced to it. And so a teacher, attuned me to Prana Shakti level 1. And that was my journey of using energy healing on myself. And I truly, honestly believe till this day that that's the missing component in healing, that Eastern medicine needs to meet Western medicine. And we need to actually integrate all of the wonderful science and data and curriculum and the psychology, and allow our ego and our mental body to really understand what we're doing, because we need to, for sure. All the contributing factors there, but our body heals on, the auric field has several layers to it. And we get stuck sometimes in those layers if we don't heal on a mental, emotional, spiritual level, physical level. If we don't heal on all those planes, that lesson gets stuck, right? So a lot of people who keep repeating the same thing over in their life, like, why am I here again? Why am I here again? And it's not that we don't know better. Maybe we've been to therapy and it's like, I know I shouldn't be doing this, but why does this keep happening? Why do I keep attracting the same kind of people in my life, or the same kind of partner in my life, or any of that?
Okay, so first tell us what Prana Shakti is.
It's a energy modality. It's similar to Reiki. Reiki is probably more on the tongue of more people, but it's something that you're attuned to. You're given the rights through a ceremony, and it's an energy that flows through you, right? So I've been attuned to several different energies. That was kind of my intro to energy healing. I then moved to Portland. Through that transformational process, I let go of everything. I mean, when I say everything, I let go of all my friends. I let go of my high profile career. I put our house on the market and I moved to a different state. I literally was like, nothing's coming with me.
Everything is gone. Okay, but let's talk about the husband.
Yeah.
That was so Andrea's story, this, and maybe a spoiler, but it's kind of a cliffhanger. She was in an open marriage.
Yes.
And I want to talk about how you wound up there too, and how that evolved with your move, because you say, I put the house on the market. What was the husband doing when you?
Well, we put it on the market, but I called the realtor. Okay. I certainly was not in a place of, at that time of my life, I was certainly not in a place of empowerment. Mm-hmm. I had done plenty of therapy, but I still was really blocked to my throat chakra. I was still unable to really speak up and stand up for myself in my relationship. So that chapter is me for the first time standing up and not worrying about disappointing everybody in my life, even though I absolutely 100% did. Right. How did I get into that relationship? And does it still exist? It still exists. He's actually sitting out on the balcony right now where I am. And so, yes, when I met my husband 21 years ago, it was a long time ago. We just celebrated 21 years. He and I both came from families that we didn't want to replicate the marriages. And that's the nicest way of putting it. I come from a background of a very abusive family. And I'm not saying that that's everyone's experience, but I will tell you that we all experience abuse or, boundaries that are unhealthy for us. And so, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry that we're getting that call right now. Hold on 1 second.
This is what happens when you do live TV.
I know, it's
Live
very
video.
live.
Uh-huh.
I apologize for that.
No,
I'm in
that's
a hotel room, so I was not expecting that.
right.
Anyways, yes, so
So
remind me
now
where I was.
so that this, what I want to point out is that so you were making a choice, but sort of you were not making a choice. You were not choosing to do this. You were choosing not
To
to
do
do
that.
that, which is
Correct.
still another level of
That's
control.
still a choice.
Yeah.
And I was very young. I was a single mom when I met my husband,
Mhm.
and I wasn't sure if I wanted to get married. And that's really what, we rolled into that. I also am bisexual. So I was not sure if I wanted to be with a man for the rest of my life. So there were several components for me at that time of my life. I was much younger and 24 at the time. And so it was just a very young period in my life.
Right.
And not having the foresight to what this could eventually roll into, right? As your life starts to progress and these choices get made, and how that starts to impact how your life evolves, right? So what else did you want to know? You wanted to know,
Okay,
do I still have that kind of agreement? Well, ultimately we do. We renegotiate terms every single year. And I think in any relationship, and I tell my clients this as well, is, you have to continue. If you're going to stay in a relationship that's healthy, you have to really get to a place where you're renegotiating terms, where you're sitting down with each other and saying, is this still working? Why is this not working? Why is it working? Learning how to speak up for each other. And I think really my segue or my entryway into that, having that larger discussion that happens more often now, is that turning point in the chapter, really. It's not that I wasn't asking for things to change. It's that I really didn't have my husband's attention. And because he was not willing to lose me, I finally got his attention, right? So it's not that he was silencing me per se. I was silencing myself to keep kind of going with the flow. It's my personality anyway.
Right.
And, because of that, that was the dynamic between us. So
The interesting thing that all of this, relationships are so individual and so complex. And I love seeing people who are saying, no, I'm going to define my relationship. I don't care what everybody else is doing.
yes,
And so, but in the beginning, this was free and empowering to you.
yes,
But at the time that you got your Graves' disease, this was
it was crippling.
yeah. So somewhere in there, you got your identity tangled up in your husband's attention. And
For sure.
yeah. And so
100%. And that has a lot to do with my attachment style. I'm an anxious attachment style. So, and he's an avoidant. So he's actually the opposite of me. And the two of us actually exacerbate each other's attachment styles all the time. Now, over time, knowing this and being more educated on it, being more responsible about it, I'm more stable. I'm obviously stable with my clients, right? And then I'm stable with him. But I hadn't learned how to do that for myself. I didn't even know what that was at the time, right? And because I was sitting on the opposite end of a therapist all the time, right? And didn't have a psychology background, this was probably what was, going on in their mind the entire time they were working with me, right? And so that truly was the missing component for me, is getting to the bottom of, and this is what I teach people, getting to the bottom of the psychology of why you actually have the actions and reactions, right? That you do. Because a lot of times we just think, oh, that's my personality. And yes, it is. But it also has some major components to it that stemmed from how we were raised when we were children with our mothers. So
the beliefs that got put into our head. And so I also have to point out that your Graves' disease was a giant gift.
It was an amazing gift. It didn't seem that way when I first got it, but it was an amazing gift, right? Because it gave me the opportunity, basically, to really stand up for myself.
Right. and the catalyst to go and make this transformation for yourself. And
Absolutely,
yeah,
because I now have a completely different career, right?
right.
I won't say have a completely different marriage, but I have a pretty different marriage than I did.
Mhm.
And 21 years will do that anyway. But yeah, but I have a very different marriage, right? Set up. And it was very outdated. And back to your point that you mentioned earlier, and I recommend this to anyone who's listening, make your relationship work for you.
Mhm. Right.
I had to get over what everybody else expected my marriage to look like, right? Because for a lot of times we were keeping a lot of the things that we were doing secret from everybody.
Mhm.
And so there, I refer back to the chapter, right? It's like there's this moment where I'm like, oh my God, everyone's going to know, right? The secret's out, the cat's out of the bag. What am I going to do now?
Mhm.
So ultimately, holding all those secrets, I had to really let go of, and I've done this, in many ways for other things too. It really let go of what other people wanted me to do,
Mhm. Yeah.
and instead truly say, what is right for me? What is healthy for me? What is the kind of relationship? How do I want to define my own terms of the relationship? Because this is my marriage. This isn't everyone else's marriage. This is mine.
Right.
So, how am I defining that?
Yeah, I love it. And I love the advice of that's going to be the gold nugget, I think, from this portion of the conversation is that everyone should be renegotiating consciously your relationships with everyone.
Yes,
This is making a date with yourself and with each other to check in and go, Okay, so we're not just stumbling along, we're living our lives together, co-creating on purpose,
yes,
and making sure that we're communicating and understanding each other's needs and all of
yes.
that. Really,
and
really
and in your intimate circle, right? You don't need to do this with, like,
right.
friends on the periphery. Hey, I want to sit down and talk about our relationship goals. But absolutely, in your intimate relationship circle, right? The people that you are connecting with, that you feel deep emotions for, that you have intense love and feelings for, right? That you absolutely 100% should be. One of the tools that I teach people in my Phoenix program is, really setting down with people. It's called feedback format, and it neutralizes conversation, right? It's almost like a script. You plug things in, and it keeps you in your functional adult, right? So that when you're giving feedback to people, you're not lecturing them. You're like, this is my moment to tell you why I just reacted the way I did.
Mhm.
And I'm communicating with you so that you can understand my side of it. That doesn't mean you necessarily agree. You have free will. I have free will. We can have different realities, but I want you to know why you just saw the reaction that you did in me.
Mhm.
This is my moment to tell you that. How do I communicate that with you? And
Nice.
so, yes, I absolutely 100% agree that when it comes to how you build your relationships around you, that you should be consistently communicating your authentic truth, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. That's awesome stuff. Okay, so you have a long list of energetic modalities that you love and practice, and you mentioned feng shui, and
Mm,
I don't, and that's so I'm always dabbling here and dabbling there and studying this and
sure.
studying that, and I'm
Yes.
at this moment I'm looking into feng shui. I'm doing some redecorating and that kind of thing, and so and. One of my favorite teaching tools is the story of the magic orchid, which basically this beautiful flower is coming into your home and lending energy to the spot that it's in
Mm-hmm.
and inspiring you to make improvements to match up with that energy. And then that just
Mm-hmm.
expands on it's just another little tiny piece of feng shui. And
Mm-hmm.
so as I was looking into this, so you can see my house behind me.
Yes.
Um, I basically it's a tiny house. There's this another bedroom and a bathroom that's beyond, but basically it's just one big room. And the
Yes.
loft is my bedroom. And so what let's back up and ask a more basic
Yes.
question
Well,
first
we'll
that
start
that
with the
applies to everybody else. Then I'll ask my selfish question.
okay. Okay.
So what
Well,
are
let's
the
start from the
very
beginning.
sorry?
I said, let's start from the beginning on what feng shui is. So feng shui matches up with energy perfectly because everything is energy, right? So depending on your belief set, we'll just start on that. You know, if you go to acupuncture and I put a needle here, it tells your body a message and it does something to your organ or it moves your blood or whatever it does, right? So your body is energy, right? It's a bunch of molecules moving around. Even if you don't believe in the woo-woo stuff, it's a bunch of energy. You've got energy. You've got energy. I've got energy. If I give you a hug, hopefully I'm in a good place because I leave a little bit of my energy on top of your energy and you do the same thing. And we coat each other all day. The chair that you're sitting on, every single person that's ever touched it or sat on it, some of their energy is sitting on that chair still. Okay. So if you never have taken a selenite wand, which is a crystal that is neutralizing, or if you've never taken sage to it, or if you never burned some Palo Santo around your chair, that energy is still there. So you're an energy bubble. I'm an energy bubble, and we bump up against each other all day long. A lot of the things that we're thinking and feeling aren't even ours. I'll give you an example. You're sitting, you know, let's say you didn't work from home, you're sitting in your office chair at work and someone comes into your office or cubicle and they like are spilling all this stuff on you and then they leave and you're like, oh, I feel terrible. That's someone throwing energy on you. Or you're driving down the road and you happen to cut someone off and they get angry with you and flip you off. They're throwing their energy at you. You now have some of their energy and beliefs on you stuck in your auric field. So we're just collecting. Think of yourself as like a kitchen sponge that sometimes gets a little bit of soap, but ultimately really is like carrying a lot of stuff. That's why moving your energy, saging or you know, saging you or your space is really important. So feng shui is about how energy moves in your home. And that matches up with how energy flows in your life. So the very basics of feng shui is using a bagua, which is essentially a grid that you place over your home. And everything about your life is in certain quadrants. So right now we'll just focus on a particular area that I specialize in, which is relationships, love and relationships corner. It's my favorite corner, okay? So I'm going to tell you where that is for anyone who's listening. You're going to take the bagua. You can just type into Google bagua and you'll see what this diagram looks like. If you want to check it out, there's, you know, different places. Now, not everyone's home is a square and I get that. But essentially, if you're laying that over and you're matching up the front of it to your front door, wherever your front door is, and then you're laying that kind of like visually, if you close your eyes and look at where that might lay from your front door, your love and relationships corner is in your upper right. Okay, so if you want to influence your love and relationships, there's colors that go along with that. There's specific things that you can do in that particular area of your home. And you can also
question. So it doesn't matter what the direction is. So if I have a north facing house,
no, it's your front door. It's the energy that flows through your house and out of your house.
Okay.
So if you have a back door, right, it's how that energy moves from the front of your house to the back of your house. Okay. It's also how you have things displayed in your house and how that energy starts to move through, right? Okay. For instance, when you walk into my home, I have a parlor. My house is really a grid. I have a parlor and a living room, and then I have this long hallway through the middle, right? But if I put a vase with some dead flowers in it or a plant that's dying right through that energy channel through the back of my house, right? That's impacting it, depending on where that is in the grid, that's impacting a particular area of my life, right? If you've got a linen closet in that hallway like I do, and it's filled with a bunch of stuff in it, and that's your health area, well, you know, you might want to think about cleaning that area or at least organizing that area, right? So it's, you know, I can't remember her name, but it's the woman that goes in and organizes your closets, and like she's got an entire show. My husband's watched it. I can't remember her name right now. But she bases it on feng shui. She has a certain way of folding. Marie Kondo, I think that's her name. Anyway, super famous. A lot of people watching will probably know who I'm talking about. But same thing. It's like your relationship to everything in your home has a memory stored to it, has energy stored to it. The couch that's behind you, whoever made the fabric, all of their energy is sitting on the couch. You think, oh, it's a brand new couch. Really, it is kind of brand new, but it's not. And then other people sit on it, right? And so everyone's like, well, what's this whole smudging thing? Or what's this energy thing? Well, as you walk through your home, different things, even if you're not conscious, on a subconscious level, are attributing to your mood, right? If you walk past that cluttered area and you think, oh God, I gotta get to that. One of these days I'm gonna organize it. That's lowering your vibration, as we would say, okay?
Yeah.
So that bagua can also be laid out on a room as well. Like you could just focus on a room, and then that 11 relationships corner again is going to be up in that upper right if you just placed it on your living room. Like if you have that open space and you placed it right there, right? It would be your upper right hand corner. So could you do something in that corner for your 11 relationships? Absolutely. You could put a vase of flowers because you want something to grow, right? You could put some really loving crystals, for instance, like rose quartz. You could put, a plant that is growing because you want your relationships to grow, and make sure that that plant is soft looking. Don't put a cactus in that area. But what's interesting is if anybody looks up the bagua and then they kind of look around their home, that's what's hysterical, is because you'll be like, oh, I have that dead plant and it's in my, career section, or my litter box, which I never want to clean, is in my fame and reputation. Right? So it's your relationship to how energy flows through your home, which is essentially your relationship to how your life flows.
This is a good time to mention that wherever you're watching this video or listening to the podcast, if you look down, we're going to provide all kinds of links. I'll find a bagua on your include in the show notes, and there'll be links to Andrea's free gifts and everything. So always look below and subscribe and participate and get on her mailing list and check her out better. Okay. Yeah. All right. So energy moving through your home. Talk to me about the elements.
The elements of what?
The 5 elements that are supposed to be represented in, fire and wood and water and earth and air.
Yes.
Yeah.
That you want represented. Well, it's different on every single room. I mean, it just depends on what you already have in your room, right? Essentially, you're looking to balance that space. And without me sitting in your bedroom right now or wherever that corner is, I can't really do a feng shui consulting.
Right, I gotcha.
But ultimately, right, you're looking to balance it. And I just encourage anybody who is really interested in it. There's plenty of information out there. There are plenty of books as well, right? There's a great book that I can give you a copy, or give you the link to, for just like the dummies version of feng shui, right? But just an excellent book written on it that is a pretty quick read. But ultimately, you're just looking to balance all the different aspects in each of those quadrants. Again, breaking them down and not getting overwhelmed with it. It's not that you need to completely redesign your home. It's once again standing in that corner and looking at how that, if it's an area that's in your closet and you're just dumping all your clothes on the floor, like it's just your relationship to that space, right? So you're having a different, there's colors associated. I mean, there's all kinds of things. It just depends on what room we're talking about or what section, right? Love and relationships, you don't need to go, the color for it is pink. You don't necessarily need to paint your room pink or that area pink, but you could put more pink and red in that area to help influence that area.
Huh.
Same with all of the different aspects, right? The wood, the water, the air, all of those different aspects, right? And so you're just going to incorporate different aspects of those things, the plant, right? Creating air, different ways of thinking, right? If you want fire in that area, you can put a candle in that area and burn a candle, right? So you're just creating different aspects of that. You don't need to do it for your entire bagua at once, right?
Right.
You're going to break it down to focus because that could be overwhelming. I read the book that I'm about to refer to you, and that, like, I was up all night. I was walking around like, oh my God, I need you to do this. I'm going to paint this wall that color. Like, yeah, it can get a little overwhelming. So just start small, right? Start small. That's my recommendation to you.
Okay.
If I was coming in and doing that with you, if we were balancing your home, right, we would start small. I would say, okay, what are some areas on the bagua that you'd like to focus on? Is it your career? Is it your love and relationships? What is it that you'd like to grow, right? Mm-hmm. Then we take you to that corner of your house and say, okay, so what's going on here? You've got books on the floor, you know, like maybe we could clean this area up, right?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And what are some aspects that we can put in that will help move the energy flow in that room? Because I don't necessarily need to paint the wall blue, but maybe I can put, you know, a vase that is blue, right? I can put different blue aspects in that particular room to bring up the energy of that room. Okay.
Right. Gotcha.
And then incorporating also the saging, as well as yes, I have a lot of modalities, but as well as clearing the energy of that room, grounding that room, or grounding your entire home, learning how to do that, teaching you how to do that, teaching you how to, and protecting. I have symbols, right, that I can place on the walls to protect all of the different areas of your home, right? I can also download certain beliefs, right? The purest form of beliefs from the creator of all that is down into your space. You know, so it's specific to your space.
Very interesting. I love it. And the big reason for the elements question is I live in essentially a log cabin. So there's so much literal wood.
There's a lot of wood, and there's a lot of beams.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beams. So softening the beams, right? If you have beams that are laying over you in bed, putting some kind of drapery or putting something that's soft, that's flowing, that's, you know, balancing them, because otherwise a lot of times those beams where they're crossing in your body, you can also have certain energy that's oppressing you, right? I know. I'm just trying to say, like, it's specific to everyone's home. So I'm like, we can't really talk about it without being in your space.
I know. Okay. But still, that's plenty to keep me busy right now, just to go work on my bed.
Start to think about it, and it's like, oh gosh, I didn't even know that this was impacting me, right?
Right. Yeah.
But you know, the beam that's going across your knee, and you're like, oh, I always have issues with that knee. What's going on there, right? It's all contributing.
Yeah. Very cool. Very good. So, all right. So that's the beam part. But what would you do? So it's like, can I not have any? I feel like I shouldn't have any wooden furniture because there's plenty of wood in my walls.
No, I don't.
Literal.
No, but I would just balance out the other aspects, right? You have a lot of red. That's a power color. I see all the red cabinets behind you. That's awesome. You know, I would balance out the other aspects, right? I don't see a lot of blue. I can't see in your room, but I don't see a lot of blue, right? You're going to want to balance out the other aspects. That's just the best way. and you're going to just want to soften the wood as much as you can, right? When you come into your home, is it soft? Does it feel soft to you? It doesn't matter how it feels to me. I'm not living in your space, right? But if you went outside your front door and walked in for the very first time, does that wood feel oppressive, right? Does that wood need to be softened? How can you soften that? Maybe you just need more plants, you know, maybe more plants are
I'm
a way to
very comfortable here. My house feels very safe and cozy.
yeah. Yeah. So it's how it feels for you, because it's your energy flow.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. It makes
Okay.
perfect sense.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so, and I love the analogy of a dead plant, right? Blocking the energy of your house. All right.
Yeah.
So I know that this is a longer lesson, but I do smudge, but I've never used the selenite wand. I have one, but I've never used it for cleansing my house.
Yeah.
Like I said, I dabble in things like, oh, this is fun. I'll do this for a week, and then whew, off it goes while I get interested in something else.
Of course.
But just the basic idea of how you would use a smudge stick to.
Yes, of course. So think of it like an eraser. Okay.
Okay.
So anything that you're using to smudge, or a selenite wand, which is completely neutral, you never need to charge it. You never need to neutralize the negative energy. It doesn't absorb negative energy. I don't know if you know this about selenite as well. If you place any stone on top of it, it magnifies the energy of that stone.
Yeah.
So if you put rose quartz on top of your selenite wand in your relationships corners, you got like a really powerful, like great energy, right? So the selenite wand can be used the exact same way. We use it like an eraser. So think of it this way: you've got chakras, all, you know, for anyone that's heard of the word chakra, you have 7 major chakras in your body, and then you have a gazillion more. Like, we're not even going to talk about how many, but they're all the little different energy. You know, again, with the acupuncture, they're all the little different energy points that spread energy. Okay. So if you've got those major ones going through the core of you from bottom to top, they send that energy out to the little ones all throughout your body. Okay. So that's how that energy moves. And when I say that energy gets stuck, right, you know, or my throat chakra wasn't completely open, when I say that, energy moves from the back of us. We receive energy and we release energy, right? So it moves through us. It's supposed to move through us. Well, if something has ever happened behind me, if I've ever been attacked, if you know, someone when I was a kid used to terrify me or scare me, right? I'm not going to be so great at receiving things, so the energy's not going to be moving through me quite as easily. Or if I wasn't ever allowed to speak up for myself, and I'm like putting it mildly, right? This is going to be real tight. The energy is not going to flow all the way through. So it's not going to move to all those little chakras again, right? So just kind of giving you a visual of what that is. So now when I talk about the energy being kind of stored or stuck, like that kitchen sponge, if I take that wand, or I take the smoke, you know, the smoke from either Palo Santo or sage or cedar, there's multiple different things that you can burn, right? But if I'm using that in the ancient ritual, and I'm going to take it and go over the top of my head, because I've got a chakra right here, right? And then go over the front of me, and you can't see the front of me, but using it as an eraser, I'm waving that all the way down the front, all the way down to my feet, and then the bottom of my feet. And then I'm going to go over the top of my arm and underneath my hands, and then all the way underneath my arm and all the way down my sides. And then hopefully someone's around and they can do the back of you all the way down the back of you. And that's going to clear the energy of your space and allow that energy to start moving like it's supposed to. Okay. It's not going to solve everything for you, but it's going to help, especially if, for instance, you just were at work
Mhm.
and that person dumped all over you. And then you go home and you're so exhausted at the end of the day. And like most of us would just pour a drink, right?
Right.
You just saged yourself when you got into your house, and not everyone likes the way that smells. So I recommend Palo Santo. I can put a link for a great person who has a farm in Ecuador. I can give you that link as well for people to purchase that in a sustainable way.
Mhm.
I really love Palo Santo and the way that it smells. It's like a spicy, woodsy aroma. Sage is, think of the word sage, right? Sage, the plant itself, has a lot of wisdom to it, but it also is a completely different smell. A lot of people don't like the smell. It's very strong, right? So
I like it. I like this message. Yeah.
yeah. So whatever your preference is, but you're using that like a wand, like an eraser, and you're releasing anything that doesn't belong, right? You're saying, I don't need that, right? There's multiple ways of doing that, but that's the easiest one for anyone that doesn't do any practices, right? Any
I'm gonna do
spiritual.
it right after this call because
You're
I like I
gonna
just prayed
so
the
for
stage
me.
stick around a little bit. I'm like,
It's
oh,
safe, it's not for me. But if you wanted to do that on, like, let's say your chair or your couch, you're just gonna, like an eraser. Like if you had an invisible eraser, you're just gonna run it along the places that everyone sits and on the pillows
great.
and on the back and around it, like you're erasing it.
Erase all the old energy. I love it. That's
Yeah, do it to your bed, right? Because you sleep in that bed. There are a lot of experiences in your bed, usually.
yeah.
Always do it to your bed. Do it to your bed frequently. Yeah. And then
Cool.
I place that selenite wand right underneath my head. I have a really large piece of it, and I place it right underneath on the floor, underneath my bed. Little feng shui tip for you. So that while I'm sleeping at night, I'm getting neutralized and I don't have to do anything. I also have a strip of it over my front door, like on the molding,
Uh-huh.
so
Right.
that anybody who walks through my house and then walks back out of my house, yep. It's not as good as doing their whole body, but it's helping, right?
It's like housekeeping,
You know,
housekeeping for your energy. What if your front door is not the door that you use the most? What if you
yeah, a lot of questions on that. That's still your front door.
the front door is still the front door, whether you use it or not? Okay.
Front door. It's just the way that the energy flows through your house, right? It's the intention, right? It's how the house was built. It doesn't necessarily matter that you use it that way or that your door isn't right in the middle. I get a lot of questions like the door's not right in the middle of the square.
Right.
That's okay. It doesn't matter where it shows up, right? It's still, maybe it shows up in your friendship area. That's okay. It doesn't matter. It's just that's how you lay out the bagua.
That's so awesome. It's so very fascinating. There's so much to learn and study. Did you do your human design chart with Karen Flaherty?
I have not. I know a little bit about my human design, but that, I have to be honest with you. I could get carried away. And at a certain point, as a healer, you kind of have to say, I continue to educate myself. I'm not saying I don't continue to grow, but taking on more modalities, I haven't mastered that. I'll just say that.
I'm with you.
I know that I am a generator, so I generate my own energy, and I know that I'm a hobbit opportunist, which is exactly how it sounds.
Right.
I'm just like you. I work from home. I love being at home. My friends all know me. Like I'm like silent, silent, silent. And all of a sudden I'm like, hey, like a roll out of the ground. How's it going? And they'll be like, what do you mean you're an introvert? For people who don't know me, because they see the non-hobbit side. Right?
Right. Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I haven't totally done the human design thing. It's interesting though, how energy flows in and how, it flows out of you.
Yeah, and how we're kind of hardwired in the way we manage energy and
For sure.
very, very
And
cool.
our relationships and how it impacts our relationships. For sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so tell me what is it? I should have asked you this first, but psychic cheerleader, what does that mean?
Okay, so my psychic in Portland, Oregon, where I live, she looked at my chart the very first time she met me, and she said, if I was going through hell, I would want you by my side. You are a psychic cheerleader. I was born psychic. We all are. Most people are like, oh, that's fancy. No, we all have intuitive gifts. We all do. You do. My husband does. We all have them. The problem is that we don't go to school for them.
Right.
And they're kind of not passed down anymore, right? We're not Native American and have an elder who's teaching us these things anymore. We're going to school and we're learning arithmetic and science and reading.
Right.
So it just isn't trained into us anymore. And depending on our background or our religious upbringing or however we're brought up, it's not believed in, right?
Right.
We put the source of power outside of us with God, right? And God's going to do everything magical. And I was raised like that, so I can speak to it. And I will just say that learning that you actually have intuition, right? That you have your own ability to make your own answers for yourself rather than searching for outside of you to wait for an answer. But ultimately, psychic really truly is several different versions of what are called clairs. Okay, so clairaudience is the ability to clearly hear. Clairvoyance is the ability to clearly see in your third eye. Claircognizance is the ability to clearly know right from wrong, truth, really know it. Clairsentience is the ability to clearly feel. Okay, so that's an empath on steroids, or a medical intuitive would be a clairsentient dominant. I'm clairsentient dominant. So that just means that if I think of you, I know how you're feeling. I can tap into your energy and I understand what's going on with you. And I really can feel it in my own body as well. I'm not doing that for everyone. That would be overload. A lot of times we are on an overload, right? If someone considers themselves an empath, right? Or a highly sensitive person, then they're walking around and they're feeling everything, right? And they haven't been taught how to manage their space or how to protect their space or how to clear their space. Again, they're feeling everything that everybody, they're listening to everything. But we all have these gifts. We've just silenced them because when we were a kid, if I was drawing my imaginary friend next to me in my picture, my teacher might turn to me and say, oh, who's that? And I say, oh, that's, Billy. And she'll say, there's no such thing as Billy, right? Because as adults, we've been programmed to not believe. There's a lot of resistance around belief and trust, right? Right. A lot of resistance. And because of that, we lose it. It's like, oh, she doesn't trust me. I'm going to shut that off. Right? She doesn't believe me. I'm going to shut that off. That doesn't exist. And it's not psychic abilities like what we watched. I remember I loved Wizard of Oz, right? And she goes to the man and he's like, got the velvet tablecloth and the crystal ball and the thing on his head. And I thought, okay, he must have magic powers. Right? He's singing to a crystal ball. It's not the stuff that we saw in the movies. It truly is when you're using your clear vision, it's your ability to imagine and create. It's when you get a psychic reading, I'm not telling you that you have the training. People have training for it, but ultimately, if you could go and get the training and you would learn how to be clairvoyant, right? So anyone can do it. It's not a magic power. We can all do it. Certainly we need encouragement and practice and training, right? So when you go get a psychic reading, someone is reading images. They've learned how to read images that your higher self wants you to know. Your higher self, the highest version of you, wants you to know. So you send me pictures and I learn how to read those pictures and I say, oh, a yellow balloon. I see a yellow balloon. Does that mean anything to you? Right? You're sending me those messages. You don't even realize you're sending me those messages. They're also in your auric field. I learned how to read things in your auric fields. Okay. So all that stuff that I was telling you that gets stuck, I learned how to read the pictures and images that you've stored. Okay. So that's how I can tell a memory from a really long time ago. And I'm watering down the concepts that,
Right.
you know, somebody who's channeling, they've worked on their clairaudience. This chakra here in their ear is really open and wide, and they trust it and they actually listen. And it's not just the ability to hear myself talk, it's the ability to trust and listen to other people talking to me, right? So that's somebody who like talks to your dead, you know, aunt who has a message for you, okay? So that's how that works. But we all have that ability, okay? Now, the psychic part, that's the psychic part, the cheerleader part, right? So when I was a kid, I was painfully shy. And back to that introvert, a lot of people now don't believe that I was, but I was so shy that if I had to talk to an adult, it would make me cry. I was hypersensitive and hyper aware. And when I say I was born psychic, and we all are, I'm also all water. So if anybody who's listening is into astrology, I'm a Scorpio, which is a water element, and I'm a Pisces rising and moon, which is also water. So I'm all water, and that Pisces is already highly psychic individuals in general. They're the oldest soul in the calendar, so to speak. And you know, the water element, again, remember we're talking back to boundaries, my ability to not have boundaries. If you think of like an ocean, it needs a harbor, okay? So I didn't have very good boundaries. I didn't have very good boundaries for myself. I absorbed everything. I was very sick as a child, always, because I took everything on, just trying to smooth everybody outside of me and never put the focus on me, right? Okay, so how these all interrelate, right? And so back to that ability to be psychic, the cheerleading part, my mom thought it was a really great idea to kind of train me out of this. She was like, no, that's not cool. We're all extroverts in the family. Let me just teach you. You're going to overcome this. And you could say that that was a gift, but it was a very painful process. And we're not going to talk about all the ins and outs of that, but I will tell you that she kept putting me on stage. And one of the things that she did is she had me become a cheerleader. She always wanted to be a cheerleader. So she had me become one. And I was a cheerleader from 7th grade all the way to my 2nd year of college, until I finally stood up for myself and said, no, I'm not doing this anymore. I don't even like it. But there were a lot of years there that I did it. I mean, we traveled to Florida and I was on ESPN competitive cheerleading, like really the serious cheerleading that like they make movies about and stuff. So I did all of that. And so that's the cheerleader component. Certainly I have that in me as well. I've always, I mean, you know, now you could boil down what I do to being a life coach, right? But ultimately, I have always mentored. If it was my daughter's babysitter that was a teenager, I was always taking her under my wing. When I was an executive assistant in the Bay Area, or I was a senior office manager with 2 office assistants, I was always taking them in with their stories and helping them with their lives. I was like the person at the front desk who had the Band-Aids and the homeopathic remedies and the steel cut oats in the kitchen because I was looking out for you, and the great granola bars. Like I was always taking care of everybody and cheering people on. I'm still cheering people on till this day. So the psychic cheerleader, right?
That's awesome. Yeah, I love what you're doing in the world. And the only thing I would change about what you just said is that it is magic, but we can all do it. It is magic, and we're all magicians. We're all sorcerers.
That's true. That is true. But I just try to demystify it for people as much as possible. It's not like a special group of people.
Right.
It can be you too, right? That's what I'm trying to say, right?
Right. Yeah. So
It's not like we get to be in the club and you don't.
Right.
That's what I mean, right?
Exactly. I know. And
Yeah.
I'm what now I want to go to clairvoyant school. Where's that?
Yes. Oh my God, there's 5 in Portland.
Really?
There's so many in Portland. Well, Portland's kind of like, it's like Sedona, Arizona, or, I can't think of the place in New York, but there's a place, like there's certain grid points on the earth that are, we won't get into this, but there's certain grid points that have certain energy to them, like Sedona, right? And so because it's very activating, so yeah, there are a lot of healers and spiritual people in these particular areas because of that, right?
Well, and and that makes, and everybody can look around and see that. You can see the energy of a town anywhere, and
For sure.
how it attracts people that are the same and that are all matched up. And
For sure.
like, oh, I like being here, but I don't like being here.
Being
And
there.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's completely
Sure.
different. All right. So tell us, as for the people that are just listening, what's the best way to work with you? What's the best way to get in touch with you and get tapped into all the goodness that you've got in?
Yes. So I have a free intuitive meditation download that I teach all of my clients how to properly ground, how to call your energy back to you, and how to protect your energetic space. And that's available at psychiccheerleader.com. Now, why are those 3 things important? Why do I feel like every single person in this world, like I need to, advocate for that for everyone, is because maybe you've done a meditation and you've grounded before, but this is the way that I was trained in clairvoyant training. So it's the proper way to ground. Why is it important to ground? Because right now we live in a very tumultuous time. We're moving into the Aquarian age. We're not going to get into that. We've actually already moved into the Aquarian age as a huge transformative time in humankind right now. And that's why it's so tumultuous outside. We are blowing things up essentially to start over from scratch. And because of that, we need to feel supported and connected. So if you've ever heard of the term grounding, essentially, you're going out to the forest and touching a tree, or you're taking your shoes off and walking through grass. You're reconnecting and realizing that you're supported by something so much larger than you. Why is it important to ground? Because all of that stuff that gets stuck in your field, your auric field, your energetic bubble that surrounds you, needs a place to go when it's no longer serving you. So when you ground, you actually have a place to release all of that. Okay. So that's why that's important. It also helps you feel supported, right? And then calling your energy back. So a lot of people might learn how to ground themselves, but we never ask for the energy that we send out to come back to us. So I teach you how to do that. You get to the end of the day and you're exhausted. That's because you've done all of these tasks all day. You've loved all of these people. You've taken care of all of these things. And now we need to call that all back and give it back to you. And the last thing I teach you how to do is to protect your space energetically. And why that's important is you could say, okay, it's a crazy world out there. And it is. But you're also, let's be honest, not always at your highest good either. So we're protecting the world from you too. It goes both ways. So teaching you how to do that essentially gives you a little bit of space. And it's not like when someone comes in contact with you, they feel like a wall or something. But it's just like putting a little net barricade in front of you so that not everything's coming through, if that makes sense. So I teach everyone how to do that there. If you want to know more about me or my story, you can go to andreafirpo.com. If you want to follow me on social media, I would say that the one that I'm like the most active on is Instagram, and that's Psychic Cheerleader. Okay. I also have a podcast where I interview women and talk about them overcoming huge tragedy or overcoming large obstacles. As you can see, that's fairly near and dear to my heart. Right. And so that's called Brilliance Through Resilience. Yep. And that's the website name as well, brilliancethroughresilience.com. Okay. So those are kind of the ways to find me. If you want more meditations or more of the products or resources, or the book, a signed copy of the book by me, right? You're going to get a signed copy by you too. But if anyone was interested in that, they could go to my store, which is called Find Peace Within the Storm.
Find Peace Within the Storm. Awesome is your store. Okay, very, very good. We are almost out of time. And I forgot to tell you that the only way I know to stop the live stream is to hang up on you. So I'll be reaching back out to you in a few minutes just to wrap things up. But and I keep telling myself I'm going to figure out how to do that.
Well, we
next time, but then I always forget.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you
for having me. I appreciate you allowing me to discuss everything with you and share your story.
Awesome, and we'll do it again because you've got so much more to give. So
thank
definitely
you.
do it again. All right, everybody. I'm going to be back next week with, I'm not sure who my guest is going to be next week. I never am. But in the meantime, remember that happiness is a choice, and you can always choose to be happy first.
That's right. Suffering is optional.
Right.